The story begins as our main character walks through a filthy, narrow alley. The atmosphere is heavy and suffocating, and Bong Joon-hyuk is fully aware of it. As he moves forward, he reflects on the loud and decaying studio district that never changes day after day, and deep within this chaos lies his tiny rooftop home, only 180 square feet in size. Soon he stands in front of his door, carrying a cup of ramen in a plastic bag and stares at it with exhaustion, showing he has been surviving on nothing but instant noodles for days on end. Bong Joon-hyuk is 25 years old, an unemployed man like anyone else, yet still grinding through 3 part-time jobs just to stay alive, working at a convenience store, a BBQ joint, and doing day labor. But even after all that effort, he cannot escape crushing debt that refuses to leave him. The scene shifts as he returns home, boils the ramen, and eats quietly, when suddenly a system window flashes before him, announcing that Bong has awakened. He freezes in shock so hard he forgets to blow on his food and burns his mouth instantly, sending sharp pain through him. After recovering, he stares at the system window in disbelief, trying to understand what awakened could mean, imagining it as some blessing or jackpot that might bring him fortune. But his thoughts quickly spiral darker as he envisions horrifying possibilities like being torn apart by monsters, crushed in ice, burned alive, poisoned within minutes, or trapped and killed in brutal ways. He is stunned, realizing his trait is summoning, and the narration explains how awakened traits work, ranging from combat styles like swordsmanship, archery, and martial arts to abilities like healing, gigantification, and summoning spirits, beasts, golems, and demonic creatures. Bong tries to understand what his own summoning power means, hoping it is something impressive, so he activates the summon command without naming anything, uncertain of what will appear. And at first nothing happens, making him think the ability only works inside the tower, since outside he is just an ordinary civilian, unable to use skills. At that moment, the system announces a random summon is being initiated, shocking Bong as a human-shaped light forms in his room right in front of the door, slowly taking shape until it becomes a full human figure. Bong is stunned, realizing he has actually summoned a person, and the man confirms it himself, addressing Bong respectfully as Sir. The summoned individual suddenly notices the smell of ramen and becomes excited, asking politely for just one bite, and Bong allows it. The man immediately grabs the ramen, blowing on it carefully before eating, and commenting that a new spicy flavor must have been released, while Bong watches in disbelief, realizing he has summoned a just one bite moocher. Bong grows irritated as the man casually enjoys the food and once again wonders how a human summon can exist outside the tower, as the system reveals that his ability applies to humans and demi-humans, ranging from rare ranks up to legendary tiers, with full communication possible between summoner and summon. Suddenly, Bong experiences a vision as a flash of light pulls him into what seems like Kosak's past, where he witnesses the assassin moving at extreme speed, drawing a knife, and instantly decapitating 3 men before calmly lining up their heads and placing ribbons on them. One by one, Bong is horrified as he realizes he is witnessing Kosak's memories and finally understands why this man was labeled insane in his profile. The scene then shifts again as Kosak turns his gaze toward a certain direction where the window of a palace comes into view. It is revealed that Kosak's end was the result of a single failure. His assassination target was the Empire's strongest swordmaster. The scene shows Kosak's approaching a sleeping man. He raises his knife ready to strike. Before he can attack, the swordmaster moves instantly and slices Kosak's body into 2 pieces like Gojo. This moment becomes Kosak's final memory. The narrative then returns to the present. After witnessing this memory, Kosak suddenly appears standing behind Bong and asks what he is thinking about. Hearing a voice from behind without warning, Bong is badly startled. He jumps back and bumps straight into his table. Kosak immediately apologizes for this. He explains that he had no intention of scaring him and that he was only asking whether there were any orders for him. Bong calms himself and recalls that it was clearly stated that the summoned must show absolute obedience to the summoner's commands. He lets out a long breath. Bong then orders Kosak to clean the area where the ramen was prepared. Kosak agrees at once and starts cleaning. Bong then tells him to clean the table as well. Kosak agrees at once and starts cleaning. Seeing how fast he works, Bong is very surprised. He is also shocked that Kosak does not complain about any task at all. Bong becomes convinced that whatever he tells Kosak to do, Kosak truly carries it out. Bong then calls out to Kosak. Kosak responds immediately and asks for his command. Bong got himself a personal servant. Bong asks whether he genuinely thinks that even pointless commands should be carried out. In response, Kosak states that he happily follows every order from the one who summoned him, no matter what kind of order it is. Hearing this, Bong tells Kosak to bark like a dog. The moment this command is given, Kosak suddenly falls silent. He stops cleaning completely and freezes in place. Seeing this, Bong starts to feel that he may have gone too far. Bong then thinks that Kosak was a powerhouse in his past life and his pride must be immense. He begins to worry about the possibility of Kosak suddenly snapping. Before Bong can finish his thought, Kosak suddenly starts barking while running around like a cute puppy. Seeing this unexpected behavior, Bong gives a thumbs up and thinks to himself that it truly is absolute obedience. At that moment, there is a knock on Bong's door. Someone outside asks him to open it. Bong suddenly remembers that he has not paid his interest recently, something he had forgotten about. He begins to feel nervous. He quickly tells Kosak to get up from the floor and Kosak immediately complies. It is then revealed that Bong borrowed 10 million won. No bank was willing to give him a loan, which is why he turned to a loan shark. The reason he needed the money was because his father slipped on ice and fell, resulting in a fractured hip. Bong had to cover the hospital bills. On top of that, he is also responsible for his younger brother's college expenses. Because of this, he had no other option but to take the loan. Bong initially believed that repaying the loan would be easy, but it turned out to be far more difficult than he expected. Even so, he has already paid more than 5 million won in interest alone. This realization makes him feel deeply distressed. All he wants is to repay his debt as soon as possible and live a peaceful life. Outside, the person continues knocking loudly on the door and tells Bong that he wants to see his face once just to make sure Bong is managing his money properly. Hearing this, Bong immediately turns his gaze toward Kosak. At that moment, Kosak draws his sword and tells Bong that all he needs is a single order. He declares that for his master he will present the other man's head as an offering. Bong immediately refuses. Looking at Kosak in panic, he thinks to himself that Kosak is about to cause a disaster. Bong hurriedly pushes Kosak toward the bathroom and tells him to hide there. He firmly instructs him not to move a muscle, to keep his mouth shut, and to not make a single sound. In response, Kosak asks whether he is even allowed to breathe. Bong allows it and Kosak feels relieved. In the next scene, the man enters the room. He grabs Bong by the shoulder and comments that Bong looks healthier than expected today. He explains that when the interest payment was not submitted, he became worried that Bong might be sick or that something bad had happened to him. With a trembling voice, Bong tells the truth and admits that he forgot, apologizing for it. He adds that he will submit the payment soon. The loan shark stares at Bong in a terrifying manner and suggests that if repaying the loan slowly is so difficult, Bong could sell one of his organs to make his hard life easier. According to him, selling a kidney would make Bong's life much more comfortable. At that moment, the scene shifts briefly outside the room where two of the loan shark's men are standing. One of them reminds their boss that Bong also has a younger brother. Hearing this, the loan shark boss remarks that the rarer something is, the higher its value becomes. Listening to such words about his brother, Bong feels an intense surge of anger. He glares at the loan shark boss with barely contained rage. Noticing the look on Bong's face, the loan shark boss questions what kind of expression that is. From his perspective, Bong looks as if he might attack him at any moment. Bong quickly reins himself in and says that he would never even think of doing something like that. After hearing this, the loan shark leaves while telling Bong to keep himself safe. He makes it clear that he does not want Bong to die before paying back the money. Once they are gone, Bong finally feels a sense of relief. Bong then calls out to Kosak, who immediately comes out of the bathroom. Bong praises him for hiding so perfectly, and Kosak becomes genuinely happy that he was able to carry out Bong's command flawlessly. As Bong recalls everything that happened throughout the day, exhaustion washes over him. He thinks about the double shifts at work, the awakening, summoning a human, and even a visit from loan sharks. On top of it all, his thoughts return to the debt, and he wonders if he should really try climbing the tower. Almost immediately, he doubts himself, thinking that there is no way a coward like him could survive climbing the tower. At the same time, he knows that he still needs to earn money. Kosak then asks if Bong has any further commands. Bong replies that he does not have any commands for now. Hearing this, Kosak requests permission to watch television until his master gives him another order. Bong is surprised as he has no idea how Kosak knows about advanced technology like television. However, he does not dwell on it and allows Kosak to watch TV. Kosak thanks him and explains that he wants to watch a few episodes of a drama. In the next scene, Kosak is shown sitting and watching television while Bong turns off the lights and lies down to sleep. The next scene shifts to the following morning. An alarm rings at 8 a.m. and Bong turns it off. He calls out for Kosak, but there is no response. He begins to think that the summon may have already been released. Bong then remembers that during the night while half asleep, he saw the system window appear with the message stating that Kosak had been released. He recalls that in Kosak details the manifestation time limit was 6 hours. Kosak could only remain summoned for that duration. Getting out of bed, Bong tells himself that he should put all of this aside and hurry to work. At that moment, he notices that the television is still on, likely because Kosak left without turning it off. News broadcast is playing on the TV. It reports that early in the morning in Jongnu, Seoul, at the offices of the illegal loan shark firm Smile Cash, a gruesome murder took place. Hearing this, Bong freezes mid-brush. He realizes that the news is talking about the same loan shark from whom he borrowed money. The report continues stating that 3 victims were found, all of them beheaded. It further reveals that what is truly shocking is that the victims' heads were found wrapped in red ribbons. Hearing about the severed heads and red ribbons, Bong is horrified. He immediately remembers that this was exactly what Kosak used to do in his past life. Overwhelmed by fear, Bong panics, because Bong believes that Kosak should not have known where the loan shark's office was located. In response, Kosak explains that when those people came to Bong's house, he placed the mark of pursuit on them, a skill that functions like a tracking system. Because of this mark, he had no difficulty locating them later. Hearing this, Bong is completely stunned. He can hardly believe that Kosak is so highly skilled that he accomplished all of this despite hiding in the bathroom at the time. Still in disbelief, Bong asks why Kosak decided to go to such extreme lengths. Kosak answers that they were considered a threat factor and that it was better to deal with them in advance. At this point, Bong points out that he never even gave Kosak a command to kill them. Kosak explains that his previous action was carried out under the third law of summoning. Bong is immediately shocked upon hearing this. Kosak then breaks down the three laws in detail. The first law states that the summoned being must prioritize protecting the summoner's life above everything else. The second law requires absolute obedience to the summoner's commands. The third law explains that when the first and second laws conflict, the first law overrides the second. To simplify it further, Kosak says obedience is always absolute, but any threat to the summoner cannot be ignored. He adds an example, stating that even if a summoner orders the summoned to kill the summoner themselves, such an order can never be executed. After finishing his explanation, Kosak smiles and gives an approving gesture, confirming that Bong has understood correctly. Bong reacts in a slightly mocking and awkward manner as he processes the explanation. Bong then presses further, pointing out that there was no real danger present and questioning whether Kosak simply made an arbitrary judgment. Kosak admits that this is correct and explains that Article 3 can be interpreted very broadly. From his perspective, those men were potential risk factors who could eventually endanger the summoner's life, and he considered his decision reasonable. Hearing this, Bong grows extremely uneasy and begins to think of Kosak as a psychopath. Realizing he may have gone too far with his words, Bong quickly tries to apologize, but Kosak immediately interrupts him. Kosak says he is used to hearing such remarks and that he cannot accept disrespect toward his master. Bong becomes even more troubled, realizing internally that while he understands Kozak's logic, the mindset itself is extremely dangerous. Bong's imagination spirals out of control. He envisions a future where he is walking with Kosak and accidentally bumps into a rough-looking man. Normally, such situations would end with empty threats meant only to intimidate, not kill. However, Bong imagines that from Kozak's perspective, even those men would end up decapitated with their heads grotesquely decorated. Overwhelmed by this thought, Bong becomes visibly frightened. Kosak, noticing Bong's terror, becomes confused and assumes he has done something wrong. Trying to take responsibility, Kosak suddenly kneels in front of Bong. Seeing this, Bong quickly tells him to stand up. Bong then tries to clearly explain himself, stressing that murder should never be done for his sake, and that such actions would only put Kosak in serious trouble. Kosak responds nervously, assuring him that no one would ever discover those actions. Bong then asks a final question, wanting reassurance that Kosak will never repeat such behavior. Kosak hesitates and admits he cannot guarantee that. Hearing this, Bong becomes anxious and insists that Kosak make a promise. He orders him not to draw his weapon unless a knife is literally at Bong's throat. Kosak must carefully determine whether someone is truly a threat before acting. Accepting this condition, Kosak salutes and promises that from now on he will evaluate situations more carefully. Seeing his obedient and energetic response, Bong feels slightly relieved and tells him to stand down for now. Kosak, however, does not leave immediately as he has a question. Bong allows him to speak. Kosak asks whether Bong has no intention of climbing the tower. Bong is startled by the question. He knows tower climbing is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but he is also afraid of it because it is extremely dangerous and could cost him his life. After a pause, Bong asks Kosak whether he had another summoner before him. Kosak answers yes and describes that person as strong and brave. Hearing this, Bong feels deep shame, comparing himself to those who use their awakening to save the world while he hesitates to risk his own life. Kosak begins to add more about his previous summoner, but Bong interrupts and admits bitterly that he is just a coward. Suddenly, Kosak smiles brightly and calls Bong the best summoner. Bong is shocked by this unexpected reaction. Kosak grabs his shoulder enthusiastically and declares that the greatest virtue of a summoner is safety first. Still stunned, Bong nervously agrees. Kosak continues, saying bravery is dangerous and even poisonous for a summoner. He explains that no one knows when death may come, and if the summoner dies, the summoned cannot exist either. As he speaks, his breathing grows intense. Bong finally begins to understand Kozak's mindset. Kosak then tells Bong not to worry or stress and promises to handle all dangerous and dirty work himself, urging him to live safely and peacefully. Bong is deeply moved, realizing no one has ever spoken to him with such sincerity and trust. The next morning, Bong wakes up after barely sleeping due to thinking about Kozak's words and the idea of tower climbing. He lies there questioning what meaning tower climbing even has for someone like him. However, he feels some relief knowing that both his debt collectors and his debt itself are gone. Later, Bong steps outside his house and breathes in the fresh air, telling himself he can now work without overwhelming pressure. Suddenly, his phone rings. It is his father, who asks about his rehabilitation. During the call, Bong learns that the hospital is recommending his father be transferred to a larger facility. He also receives shocking news that his mother has lost her job. Bong is left speechless. His father reassures him and says he just wanted to check in since they have not spoken in a long time. They exchange a few simple words before hanging up, and Bong remains stunned, thinking about how hard his mother worked and how painful this will be for her. In the next scene, Bong is fully equipped in safety gear, preparing to enter the tower. Having taken a day off from his part-time jobs, he decides to at least check the first floor and leave if it seems dangerous. He also considers whether there is any need to summon Kosak again, or if he could try someone else. Smiling nervously, he imagines pulling a rare high-rank summon. At that moment, a system message appears stating that random summon is unavailable, with a cooldown of 28 days, 11 hours, 8 minutes, and 37 seconds. Bong is shocked that he cannot summon for a month. Immediately after, Kosak appears in front of him, saluting and thanking him for the 5-star rating while declaring loyalty. Bong awkwardly greets him, hoping Kosak did not notice his attempt to summon someone else. Kosak, confused by his behavior, listens as Bong reveals he has decided to enter the tower. Kosak first praises him as brave, then doubts him, refusing to fully accept it. Bong explains he only intends to try briefly and leave immediately. Kosak then declares this is exactly what he expected from Bong, throwing away Bong's items and insisting he will act as his tool and guardian. Bong agrees. A system message appears asking if he wants to enter the Korea Black Tower, noting that only the first floor is currently accessible. Bong is stunned as he realizes he is truly about to enter. Kosak becomes excited. After confirmation, both are suddenly pulled into the tower. They begin falling through a vast high-dimensional tunnel. Kosak tightly grips Bong while Bong screams in fear as the sensation overwhelms him. It is his first time falling from such a height, and his body struggles to endure it. Kosak never lets go, holding him firmly until they finally arrive inside the tower. Bong looks around in shock, realizing the first floor is an endless wasteland. His stomach churns and he collapses, vomiting due to the extreme motion. Kosak gently reassures him, saying he will get used to it. After recovering slightly, Bong follows Kosak beyond the safe zone. As they move forward, system messages appear, stating that his physical abilities have increased and that skills and traits are now available. Bong realizes that despite being level 1, his body already feels stronger than before. At that same moment, a detailed message appears on the system window, displaying the first floor mission. It requires defeating 5 tough-skinned fatty grubs within a 2-hour time limit. The completion condition shows 0 out of 5 defeated, while failure is defined as either death or abandoning the mission. As soon as the message appears, Kosak spots nearby monsters. Bong, who has already done prior research, begins thinking back on what he knows. He concludes that the first floor is meant to test basic skills. He recalls that the tough-skinned fatty grub is similar to a scarecrow-type monster, virtually no attack power, but with extremely hardened skin that makes it difficult to kill. He also remembers that most players can only manage to defeat one in around 30 minutes at best. Reminding himself that he is now a player 2, Bong decides he must at least take down one. With that determination, he starts moving toward the monsters. Seeing this, Kosak becomes uneasy and questions whether such unnecessary effort is really needed. However, Bong ignores him and walks straight toward one of the creatures. Standing near it, Bong borrows a weapon from Kosak and pauses for a moment to think before turning slightly back toward him. At that instant, the monster senses a human presence, rises from the ground and prepares to attack Bong. The creature's sound shocks him badly, and with a frightened expression, he slowly turns toward it and immediately screams for Kozak's help. Hearing the command, Kosak reacts without hesitation. He rushes forward at incredible speed and kills the monster in a single strike before it can even attack. More monsters are nearby, and Kosak immediately dashes toward them, telling Bong to wait for a moment. One by one, Kosak begins slaughtering the remaining monsters with overwhelming agility and skill. He draws multiple blades into both hands and fires them simultaneously, each blade piercing directly into a monster's body. With most of them pinned down, Kosak stops and calmly utters a single command. The moment those words are spoken, all the embedded blades detonate at the same time. In an instant, every monster is completely destroyed, and the battlefield falls silent. Kosak walks back toward Bong like a victorious hero, while behind him the monsters continue exploding one after another like bombs. Witnessing Kozak's overwhelming strength, Bong is left completely stunned. It is the first time he has seen him fight, and the sight leaves him in utter disbelief at how powerful Kosak truly is. At that moment, a reward notification appears on the system window, announcing that the first floor mission has been successfully completed and that Bong has leveled up. The reward includes 100 gold magic stones. Another notice follows, stating that an S+ clear rank has been achieved for the first floor of the Korea Black Tower along with a platinum badge as the S+ reward. Bruden feels as though he is floating in midair. He cannot believe everything was cleared so easily and quickly realizes he may soon become rich. However, what the beta male Bong does not yet know is that at this very moment the same notification has appeared for every player across South Korea. The scene shifts, showing system windows appearing in front of an office worker, a woman at a gym, and a young man elsewhere. One by one, similar notifications spread across countless people in Korea, making it clear that Bong will soon face many competitors. Soon after, another message appears on Bong's system window, stating that he is now eligible to challenge the second floor and will be exiting the Korea Black Tower. Immediately afterward, both Bong and Kosak are transported back to Bong's room. Bong realizes that once a floor is cleared, the system instantly returns the player home. He checks his phone and sees that only 5 minutes have passed since they entered. At that moment, nausea hits him again. Kosak, filled with happiness, praises Bong for a job well done. Bong admits awkwardly that he did nothing except stand and watch. Kosak accepts this and says it was the correct decision. Even though he feels embarrassed, Bong still agrees. Bong then reflects that other players reportedly struggled for hours just to defeat the grubs, while his experience was far too easy. Shifting his focus, he turns to his rewards and picks up the magic stone, examining it closely. Information appears explaining that magic stones are essential resources in modern industry. Their value has dropped significantly since the early days of the towers, now selling for about 50,000 won per 100 gram. With 20 years having passed since the appearance of black towers worldwide, most people already understand this basic knowledge. Bong then looks at the platinum badge and realizes he has never even heard of such an item before. He decides to sell the magic stone and collect the 50,000 won, a task that would only take about 3 minutes. As Bong heads out, Kosak turns on the television and sits down, planning to enjoy a drama while waiting. The next scene shows the two of them sitting together for a meal. Bong has brought back a proper dish. As Kosak smells the food, he asks whether it is spicy jokbal made from pig's trotters. Bong denies it, knowing full well that Kosak cannot handle spicy food. However, Kosak still detects a hint of spice, making Bong think again that he truly has zero tolerance for it. Once it is confirmed that the food is not spicy, Kosak becomes excited and happily prepares to eat. He thanks Bong sincerely, treating him almost like royalty, which slightly surprises Bong. Bong then asks whether Kosak always speaks in the same formal way. Kosak becomes confused, and Bong explains that he often shortens his sentence endings with formal suffixes. Kosak replies that this habit developed from spending a long time with his previous summoner, which influenced his speech pattern. Hearing this, Bong understands that it is similar to picking up habits from a former partner. It becomes clear that Kosak is still somewhat influenced by his previous summoner. Kosak tells Bong that if the speech style bothers him, he can change it. Bong replies that there is no need, as he actually finds it amusing. Hearing this, Kosak laughs, and Bong ends up laughing as well. At that moment, Bong finally feels reassured that Kosak is not as dangerous as he initially thought. He realizes that he only needs to manage him properly in his own way. With that in mind, he decides he can return to the tower again. The next morning, Bong creates an Sigma Male daily routine chart. He organizes his schedule, planning to work at a convenience store during the day and at a charcoal grill restaurant at night. He also decides to quit his day labor job and instead focus on working with Kosak to clear towers. To him, it feels like the perfect plan. At that moment, Kosak appears and is shocked to see that Bong has once again given him a 5-star rating. Bong tells him that if there had been a 10-star option, he would have given it. Kosak, filled with joy, says he is extremely satisfied with his summoner. Bong then wonders whether the satisfaction rating is really that important. Kosak explains that higher ratings bring greater benefits. He clarifies that after each summon, the rating affects future upgrades, including manifestation time, rank increases, and even the probability of being summoned again. The scene transitions as the two of them enter the second floor of the Black Tower together. A mission notification appears on the system window, displaying the second floor objective: defeat 10 quick-witted fatty grubs within a 2-hour time limit. As soon as they arrive, the second floor grubs immediately sense human presence and begin rushing toward them in a group. Seeing this, Bong notes that the second floor grubs are more troublesome because of their unpredictable movement patterns. He asks what they should do to clear the stage. In response, Kosak calmly explains that Bong does not need to do anything at all and that the fight will end quickly. Smiling confidently, he raises 3 fingers, signaling that he will clear everything in just 3 minutes. He then steps forward and tells Bong to wait while he quickly finishes the job so they can return home together. Bong suddenly shouts that they will be eating chicken today. Hearing this, Kosak smiles and thanks him. At the same time, he hurls his blades toward the grubs, and just like before, the blades explode on impact. Watching the battle unfold, Bong looks completely excited, clearly enjoying every second of it. Soon after, a reward notification appears on the system window, announcing that the second floor mission has been successfully completed and Bong has leveled up. The reward grants 200 grams of magic stones. Another notice confirms an S+ clear rank for the second floor of the Korea Black Tower, along with an additional platinum badge reward. Bong realizes how effortlessly everything is being cleared and is impressed that Kosak is even faster than he expected. He understands that he can now clear a floor before heading to his part-time job in the morning and still arrive on time without any trouble. As the scene transitions, the two proceed to the 3rd floor. Upon landing, Kosak comments that Bong's landing has improved. Shortly after, the system window announces the 3rd floor mission: defeat 2 ice-cold fatty grubs. Within a short time, Kosak eliminates them with ease. Once defeated, a reward notification appears, confirming mission completion and another level up. The reward grants 300 grams of magic stones. Another notice declares an S++ clear rank for the 3rd floor of the Korea Black Tower, along with an additional platinum badge reward. The scene continues as the 4th floor is also cleared, with a notification confirming its completion. Kosak defeats all the grubs effortlessly, as if it is nothing to him. Soon after, the 5th floor is cleared as well, followed by another completion notification. Overwhelmed with excitement, Bong celebrates together with Kosak, sharing in their continuous victories. At that moment, a new system notification appears, announcing that 5 S+ rank platinum badges have been collected and a special perk has been awarded for reaching this milestone. Seeing the term special perk for the first time, Bong is completely shocked. The system then reveals the details of the special perk: an awakening trait enhancement. Due to this effect, the number of simultaneous summons is increased to 2. In the next scene, Bong's system profile is displayed in full detail. His name is shown as Bong, affiliated with the Black Tower of the Republic of Korea. His level is now 6. His trait is summoning, with simultaneous summons increased to 2. The catalog section is empty. His trait skills include designated summon, random summon, and summon release. His general skills include tower entry, usable once per day, and a tower-exclusive inventory. His combat skills remain empty. Seeing the option for 2 simultaneous summons leaves Bong deeply shocked. This means he already has the opportunity to summon another being a month earlier than expected. In other words, another summoned companion could join him. However, Kosak alone is already handling everything by himself. Bong realizes that the S++ clear reward is extremely valuable. He senses that this will become a long-term progression, but also that it significantly increases his safety. He then checks the random summon option and sees that more than 20 days remain before it becomes available again. Understanding this, he decides to be patient and wait. Until then, his summoned companions will continue clearing floors for him while he enjoys the portal rides for free. While thinking this through, he suddenly remembers that the 6th floor is next and still needs to be cleared. The scene smoothly transitions to Hanamdong in Seoul, Republic of Korea, inside the Awakener Management Administration. Inside the office, several figures are introduced. One of them is Jeon Gwang-il, the team leader of the Awakener Management Administration. Each time a floor is cleared, an announcement echoes through their office. As he waits, he grows increasingly tense, constantly wondering when the next announcement will arrive, morning, evening, or even late at night. At that moment, Lee Mina, the deputy director, approaches and interrupts his thoughts, asking if he is again thinking about the announcement. Annoyed, Gwang-il raises his voice and warns her not to read his mind. Mina responds that she simply cannot suppress her curiosity. Gwang-il then turns serious and asks if a new announcement has appeared. Mina confirms that it has and reports that it is an S+ rank clear of the Korea Black Tower's 6th floor. Hearing this, Gwang-il is stunned. He begins to think that the global announcements have been appearing repeatedly, all showing S+ rank clears. He becomes convinced that a single individual is responsible. Floors 1 through 5 were cleared sequentially, leaving no doubt that this person possesses overwhelming and unprecedented talent. He then wonders what would happen if the 7th, 8th, 9th, and even 10th floors were also cleared. At that moment, another man slams his hand onto the table. He is revealed to be Park Kyun-soo, the bald director of the Awakener Management Administration. He addresses both Gwang-il and Mina, stating that they already understand the situation. Until now, Korea's highest recorded clear rank was only A, and S+ ranks were unheard of. It was also unknown that an S+ clear would trigger a global announcement. He emphasizes that in today's world, player naturalization is common, and even covert kidnappings occur. Before another country can seize this player, he insists they must locate them immediately and closely monitor all newly registered Awakeners. After this conversation, the scene smoothly shifts to Bong's home 2 days later. The group is already discussing plans to clear the 8th floor. Kosak is cheerfully washing dishes in a good mood, confidently agreeing with everything. It becomes clear that they are now clearing 1 floor per day without any difficulty. From Bong's perspective, everything is going smoothly as they steadily approach the 10th floor. The next scene shows them moving through a forest on the 8th floor, with Kosak leading from the front and Bong following behind. At that moment, the 8th floor mission appears: defeat 10 red thorn frog warriors. The frogs immediately rush in and launch an attack. Kosak draws his dagger and swiftly cuts them down one by one. Almost instantly, a reward notification appears, confirming the successful completion of the mission. Bong levels up and receives 800 grams of magic stones along with 5 tower-exclusive healing potions. Another announcement follows, declaring an S+ rank clear for the 8th floor of the Korea Black Tower, and awarding yet another platinum badge. They soon return home together, where Bong congratulates Kosak for a job well done. Bong, still not fully adjusted to the repeated portal rides, begins to feel a headache. He explains that the hardest part is actually the entry process itself. Even so, he thanks Kosak, realizing that without him, clearing the tower would not be this easy. In response, Kosak warns him not to let his guard down, explaining that after the later 10th floors, things will no longer remain this easy. Hearing this, Bong quietly decides to give Kosak a small reward for his hard work. He takes out a banknote from his bag and hands it to him, telling him that he still has plenty of manifestation time left and should go out, eat something good, enjoy himself, and come back later as long as he does not cause trouble. However, Kosak immediately refuses the money. Bong is confused, wondering why Kosak rejected it so easily after he gathered the courage to offer it. Kosak explains that he is not allowed to go anywhere alone without Summoner Bong. All he is permitted to do is stay at home and watch television, which he actually enjoys. Hearing this, Bong wonders whether absolute obedience also applies to restrictions like this. Since Kosak cannot go out, Bong decides to simply order chicken instead. Kosak happily agrees. While watching a drama on TV, Kosak reminds Bong to order something good but not spicy. He suggests flavors like honey, cheese, butter, or other sweet options. After placing the order, Bong checks their rewards. He notices they have received a tower-exclusive healing potion and decides to save it for Kosak. Looking at the accumulated magic stones, he begins calculating their value, realizing they now have 3.6 kg worth around 1.8 million won. The scene then shifts to the 10th day, the day they are about to enter the 10th floor. Bong feels slightly emotional, wondering when he will finally be freed from his part-time jobs. At first, he only intended to step into the first floor briefly, but now he has been clearing one floor per day without pause. Even yesterday's 9th floor, the jungle man eating corpse flower, had been easy. Clearing floors now feels routine, and CES rewards feel like a bonus rather than a challenge. Everything feels unreal yet reassuring. With those thoughts, Bong looks at Kosak warmly and raises a playful toast to his squinty eyes, completely forgetting that Kosak is a ruthless assassin who has already killed 3 people. Soon after, Bong summons him again. A system message appears stating that Kosak's satisfaction rating has been set to 5 stars. Due to continuous top ratings, his manifestation time increases by 1 hour. Seeing this, Bong feels excited, realizing that giving the highest rating was absolutely worth it. Kosak becomes extremely happy, reacting with an almost idol-like heart gesture, thanking Bong as his abilities improve. Bong expresses his excitement to continue working together. In response, Kosak assures him that everything will be handled. The scene then transitions as they arrive on the 10th floor. System notifications confirm entry into the Korea Black Tower's 10th floor. Bong's physical abilities are enhanced to match his level, and his trade and combat skills become available. Upon arrival, Bong immediately feels the atmosphere shift. Suddenly, something stirs in his body, and he freezes in place. He senses his body being recalibrated within the tower, overflowing with strange mana gathering in his lower abdomen. Moments later, Bong is shocked to find himself transforming into a horse. He cannot believe what is happening. Despite this, he tells Kosak that he will help this time as well. However, Kosak firmly refuses, stating that if even a single scratch were to appear on Summoner Bong, he would destroy himself immediately. Bong tells him not to worry, insisting that he has now become a wild horse. Kosak calmly replies that Summoner Bong's encouragement alone is enough. Still, Bong insists on fighting together. At that moment, he notices the eye of a gigantic insect monster nearby. The creature is enormous, making both of them look tiny in comparison. Bong is stunned that a 10th floor monster is this massive. Trembling, he wonders how anyone could possibly defeat something like this, and thinks that sending only 2 people feels like it insults human pride. Kosak calmly responds that there is nothing pride-damaging about it. Bong immediately denies this, insisting that it does hurt his pride very much. Just then, the monster turns its massive eyes toward them. Bong immediately starts cheering Kosak on, urging him to fight. The monster swings its enormous arm to attack, but Kosak dodges it in advance, gripping his daggers tightly. His expression turns extremely serious. Within moments, Kosak slices the monster apart into countless pieces, finishing it instantly. A reward notification immediately appears, confirming that the 10th floor mission has been successfully completed. Bong levels up and receives 1 kilogram of magic stones as a reward. A global announcement then follows, declaring an S+ rank clear of the Korea Black Tower's 10th floor along with a platinum badge reward. As the message appears, Kosak gives a cute smile and calmly signals that the mission is complete. Immediately after, another system message confirms that the 11th floor can now be challenged and that they are exiting the Korea Black Tower. By this point, Bong has accumulated a total of 5.5 kg of magic stones along with another platinum badge added to his rewards. Soon after, a new system notification appears stating that a special perk has been granted after collecting 10 platinum badges. Bong becomes extremely excited but at the same time feels confused since he has no idea what the perk actually is. Immediately, the system window clears his confusion and displays an explanation. The perk allows him to copy 1 skill from a summoned entity. A list of available skills appears, including Blade Explosion, Shock Break, Vile Ambush, Poison Dagger, Shadow Step, Disruption, Stealth, Invisibility, Polymorph, and many more. A prompt then asks him to choose 1 skill. Bong is shocked, realizing this is possible for the first time. At that moment, Kosak calls out and firmly insists that the correct choice is Shadow Step. Bong becomes confused, so Kosak explains that if he can copy a skill, he should not hesitate, and Shadow Step is the one he must learn. When Bong asks why, Kosak says it is convenient for running away, and that if anything ever happens to him, Bong would be able to escape quickly and quietly. Hearing this, Bong feels slightly hurt and begins to wonder what Kosak truly thinks of him. He questions whether Kosak believes he would abandon others just to survive, but he knows that is not who he is. At that moment, another system message appears, confirming that Shadow Step has been acquired and registered in his status window. Bong becomes serious and reflects that fast movement is extremely important in combat, recalling that footwork is often described as the life of battle. He then wonders whether this skill would also work in the real world. With that thought, he goes outside to his garden and begins practicing the flash step-like movement. Meanwhile, inside the room, Kosak comfortably watches a drama on television. After practicing for a while, Bong becomes exhausted and lies down on the floor, completely drained. He concludes that if summoning worked in the real world without the tower, the skill might function properly there too, but in reality, it does not. Kosak, meanwhile, simply continues watching TV, fully supporting whatever his summoner says. The story then shifts to the 11th day of tower climbing, where Bong is seen making a phone call. The person on the other end identifies the call center of the Awakener Management Administration. Bong nervously introduces himself and explains that he is an awakened individual. The operator congratulates him loudly, causing Bong to pull the phone away from his ear. Soon after, they ask whether he is confused and offer to send government support staff to his home. Bong agrees and provides his address. The call ends with the administration thanking him for his cooperation and saying they will arrive soon. It is then revealed that ordinary citizen Bong has contacted the Awakener Management Administration to sell magic stones, marking the bravest decision of his 25-year life. In the next scene, Mina is seen leaving the management office and getting into a car, where Guangyil is already waiting. He asks about the Awakener who contacted them from Daegu the previous day. Mina replies that she does not believe that person is the owner of the Cessbruckard either. Guangyil becomes frustrated, wondering if such a person even exists. Mina then informs him that another awakening request has arrived and asks if he will go as well. Guangyil answers yes, stating they must push themselves fully. He insists that if this person turns out to be the S+ clear player, they must recruit them into the elite team, even if they must offer the best possible benefits. The scene returns to Bong. After Kosak disappears, Bong cleans his room thoroughly and throws away all the trash. At that moment, the Awakener Management Administration arrives outside and calls for him. Bong opens the door and invites them inside, saying the room is small. Guangyil enters and introduces himself as team leader Jin Guangyil from the administration. He gestures toward Mina, introducing her as Deputy Director Lee Mina, also a player, encouraging Bong to ask her anything. Seeing her, Bong becomes even more nervous. Mina immediately steps closer and asks if he is the one responsible for the S+ clears. With her face very close to his, Bong becomes extremely flustered and starts blushing. He panics internally, wondering what is going on and whether there is some way to identify awakeners that he does not know about. He decides to deny it for now and forces himself to act natural, but instead speaks stiffly like a malfunctioning robot, awkwardly laughing afterward. Mina narrows her eyes in suspicion. Guangyil suddenly raises his hand as if to hit Mina, scolding her for always interrogating people. Mina dodges and promises to be more careful. Guangyil then apologizes to Bong for her behavior, addressing him respectfully as a player. Bong nervously replies that it is fine, while internally realizing she was clearly trying to extract information. At that moment, a fairy-like figure appears, the mascot of the Korea Black Tower. The being introduces itself as Tabby and begins explaining the truth of the world. It reveals a massive black structure that surpasses even the tallest buildings on Earth, the Black Tower. Tabby explains that these towers appeared worldwide 20 years ago overnight. Countries attempted to investigate using armies and scientists, but an invisible barrier made physical contact impossible. The truth was only revealed when players appeared. The tower functions like a game, where climbers ascend floor by floor. Outside, they are ordinary people, but inside they gain extraordinary powers and skills. Using rewards from the tower, players grow stronger and significantly influence the global economy. A system notice appears, warning that Korea's Black Tower progression is falling behind. Another notice immediately follows, announcing that the tower collapse countdown has been activated and that it will only be halted if an uncleared upper floor is conquered. Tabby continues explaining that if no higher floor is cleared within 6 months, the countdown will progress until the tower ultimately collapses. Another notification appears, stating that the Black Tower in the country is now in a collapse state, followed by a grim revelation. 3 years ago, this exact scenario led to the disappearance of the Indian city of Mumbai. Tabby then shifts focus to South Korea, explaining that each country has between 1 and 3 Black Towers, while Korea has only one, located deep within the mountains of Gangwon province. Tabby states that the number of players in Korea is estimated at between 5,000 and 10,000, only about 0.02% of the population. Despite the small number, Korea's Black Tower progress is relatively strong, currently reaching floor 65, the second highest in the world after America's floor 66. Tabby reassures everyone that society has its heroes in the form of players, comparing tower exploration to humanity's historical age of discovery. It then addresses awakened individuals directly, calling them the hope of this era and encouraging them to register officially to become heroes. The narration ends and Guangyil informs Bong that the mandatory viewing is complete. Bong internally cringes, thinking of it as propaganda. Guangyil then begins the interview process, directly asking whether Bong is truly awakened. Bong confirms that he has entered the tower and cleared floors, mentioning the magic crystals he has obtained. Guangyil notes that this makes things easier and asks which floor he has reached. Bong replies that he is on floor 10. Guangyil and Mina exchange glances, both considering whether he could be connected to the S+ record. Mina then asks if Bong has seen the global announcements trending recently. Bong reminds himself to act natural, but once again speaks stiffly, awkwardly praising the unknown S+ clearer. Guangyil tells him not to be so tense. Guangyil internally panics, realizing his behavior looks suspicious, and his body visibly twitches. Guangyil proceeds to explain the contract system. He states that players are divided into 2 categories. The first is the elite climbing team, which consists of about 69% of climbers. The second is the general climbing team, where players manage their own schedules independently like freelancers. The elite team works closely with the government's Awakener Management Agency, is required to climb higher floors, and receives various benefits, including protection outside the tower and a base salary. Outside the tower, players are essentially no different from ordinary people. Bong internally panics, thinking that if his S+ identity is discovered, he will be swarmed by reporters, which is the last thing he wants. When asked about applying for the elite team, he immediately declines. Mina internally marks this as another miss, noting that while many players avoid risk and farm safely, it is rare to reject the elite path so directly during screening. She concludes he is too timid for the elite team and not worth recruiting. Guangil respects Bong's decision and asks him to enter the tower as a final confirmation of his awakening. Bong agrees. Guangil suggests he should use his daily entry properly and even clear a floor while inside, as most people do. Bong hesitates, sensing further testing to confirm whether he is the S+ clearer, but agrees to attempt a clear. He warns that he usually takes nearly the full-time limit, around 2 hours. Mina replies that it is fine and tells him to take his time. Bong casually tells them to watch TV while waiting, then disappears. Back in the room, Guangil asks Mina if she thinks Bong is truly awakened. Mina replies that she is uncertain, but describes him as timid and predicts he will give up on floor 11. She explains that she has cleared it before and that floors 11 to 15 are fear-based tests. She mentions long-tailed burrow centipedes, which are not strong but extremely disgusting, requiring 100 kills. Guangil adds that their appearance alone is terrifying. Mina is confident Bong will retreat to the safe zone and abandon the mission. Guangil agrees, noting her assessments have been accurate so far, and decides to report to the director that this lead is another dead end. Inside the tower, Bong summons Kosak. Kosak salutes and thanks him. A system window displays the Floor 11 mission. Defeat 100 long-tailed burrow centipedes within 3 hours, with death or abandonment as failure conditions. Bong groans at the thought of dealing with 100 centipedes. Kosak confidently says he will handle it quickly. Bong notes that it would normally take about 5 minutes, but instructs Kosak to move as slowly as possible and take at least an hour to avoid another S+ clear. He admits that people are watching outside and even considers canceling the summon if necessary. Kosak gives a thumbs up, understanding. Bong smirks internally, believing this will break the S+ pattern. Kosak begins cutting down centipedes one after another. Bong relaxes but suddenly notices a centipede beneath him and freezes in fear. Kosak immediately shouts that he will protect his summoner and wipes them out instantly. Bong urgently tells him to slow down, but Kosak refuses, saying Bong's life comes first. A system notification appears. Floor 11 cleared with an S-class rating, awarding a platinum badge and unlocking Floor 12, followed by an exit notice from the Black Tower. Bong curses in frustration. Kosak apologizes. Back in the room, Mina and Guangil wait when a system message confirms Bong's S-class Floor 11 clear. Moments later, Bong reappears. Both are shocked as Mina notes the timing matches his return exactly. Bong sighs deeply and says he really did not want to do this. He declares that the two of them must be silenced. Behind them, Kosak steps forward, ready to strike. Bong orders him to tie up Mina and Guangil. Instead, Kosak immediately cuts off their heads. Bong froze in shock and screamed internally, wondering whether he had ever actually ordered Kosak to cut off their heads. Panic surged through him as he hurriedly apologized to Mina and Guangil. But then, everything shattered. Bong gasped sharply, realizing it had all been nothing more than his imagination spiraling out of control. Back in reality, Mina and Guangil were still standing in front of him, noticing his condition and asking if he was alright after suddenly breaking into a cold sweat. Bong quickly apologized and insisted he was fine. Inside his mind, he admitted that he was becoming paranoid without even realizing it. Guangil continued the discussion, once again explaining that the elite team urgently needed talent like player Bong. Bong responded awkwardly, saying the situation made him uncomfortable. He tried to explain that there might have been a misunderstanding, claiming that his 11th floor clear probably overlapped with another player's run. He exaggerated his reaction, acting surprised at how such a coincidence could even happen. However, Guangil pointed out that the timing was far too perfect. Bong immediately insisted he was innocent, stumbling over his words as he apologized again, saying that their way of speaking must have influenced him. He firmly denied any involvement. When pressed further, Bong reaffirmed his denial, laughing awkwardly and repeating that it definitely was not him. Guangil eventually accepted his answer and presented an elite contract card. Bong looked at it and asked if that was really the offer, requesting instead a standard contract. Guangil then explained that this was a unique agreement known as the Ultra Elite Contract, the only one of its kind in the industry. It included an annual salary of 12 billion won, real estate benefits, VIP treatment, full security detail, and even immunity privileges. Bong realized internally that this was essentially being treated like someone above the law, almost like nobility. Guangil added that only player Yuchi Min, the #1 ranked in South Korea, currently receives such benefits. The contract included every possible advantage the state could offer. Bong suddenly slammed the table and refused outright, saying he did not want to become a player under anything other than a standard contract. Guangil asked why he was rejecting it so strongly. Bong answered that he did not want to become the center of attention. Internally, he admitted that being watched by others placed unbearable pressure on him, turning into stress that weighed heavily on his heart. Guangyil and Mina understood that Bong was simply an introvert and decided to step back. Guangyil acknowledged his feelings and agreed to proceed with a standard contract instead. They shook hands and left. Watching them go, Bong thought that anyone observing the situation would be frustrated with him. Most would say he should accept the elite contract and climb freely with all the benefits. But he knew responsibility always matched reward. With an elite contract, stopping upper floor raids would not be optional. They existed solely to clear them. Bong wanted nothing to do with that kind of burden. As long as life became easier than before, he was satisfied. The scene shifted to the Awakener Management Bureau in Hanam-dong, Seoul. The commissioner confronted Guangyil, saying the situation was completely different from the interim report. He reminded him that the player had been described as timid and lacking the will to climb. Guangyil confirmed that assessment. The commissioner then questioned how such a person could achieve an S+ rank. Guangyil confirmed again and explained that Bong's personality itself was unusual, surprisingly ordinary, almost excessively so. The commissioner raised his voice and ordered that Bong be brought in immediately, no matter what. Guangyil acknowledged the order. In the next scene, Bong pretended to be angry as he confronted Kosak, complaining that despite strict instructions, everything had been exposed. Kosak apologized. Bong warned that if it happened again, he would be unsummoned immediately and receive nothing. Kosak once again apologized and accepted the command. A system window appeared announcing entry into the 12th floor of the Black Tower of South Korea. The mission required defeating 20 icicle spear weasels within 3 hours, with failure meaning death or abandonment. They arrived on the 12th floor, where an intense cold instantly surrounded them. Bong warned Kosak to proceed carefully. Kosak agreed. Bong felt reassured, thinking Kosak was being properly obedient this time, and that things could finally be controlled. He believed that if they cleared the 12th floor normally, the agency would likely lose interest. But the freezing cold was unbearable. Kosak noticed and asked if he was cold, then immediately began slaughtering the monsters one after another, deciding to finish quickly so he could take Bong somewhere warm. The 12th floor was cleared instantly. Bong felt disappointed once again. At that moment, Guangyil called him in disbelief, asking if he had really cleared the 12th floor already. Bong confirmed it and casually added that the 13th floor might be difficult. Kosak, meanwhile, suggested watching TV. Bong burst into tears internally and punished him by banning TV for disobedience. They proceeded to the 13th floor. Kosak rushed forward with overwhelming speed and cleared it almost instantly. He then immediately wiped out the monsters on the 14th floor as well. Later, Bong checked his earnings. He saw that magic stone sales had reached 275 million won. After a 35% deduction, the player support fund amounted to 2 million won. The magic stones from floors 11 to 14 totaled 5k glees, worth about 2.5 million won. Bong realized he had earned over 10 million won in just 14 days. He calculated that reaching the 20th floor would likely double his gains again. If handled by the agency, it could become a stable income of around 1 million won per day, with no taxes or fees, almost 30 million won per month. Excited by this, he decided to quit his part-time job. The next day, Bong summoned Kosak again. Kosak knelt and apologized deeply for his earlier disobedience, calling it a serious mistake. From the 15th floor onward, he asked to be allowed to proceed normally. Bong agreed, saying he would no longer order him to go slowly. He realized the agency already knew everything anyway. Internally, he calculated that if the 15th floor also resulted in an S+ clear, he would have 15 platinum badges, likely triggering another perk. His greed slowly grew as he believed stacking perks would make him safer. They entered the 15th floor. Goblins appeared, Bong's first time seeing them. Kosak told him to hide and immediately activated stealth, silently slaughtering every goblin on the floor. Bong watched in stunned disbelief. They returned home. Bong immediately checked his inventory and saw 15 silver badges. His heart pounded as he realized the condition had been triggered. After 5 badges, he received trait enhancement. After 10, he gained skill copy, and now at 15, he waited for the next reward to appear. Bong impatiently opened the special reward energy barrier kit. To his surprise, the kit was incredibly compact, almost the same size as an ordinary wristband. Bong slipped it onto his wrist and lightly pressed it. In the next moment, a layer of energy armor instantly wrapped around his entire body, forming near full-body protection equipment. The only limitation was a 5-hour cooldown between uses, and the shield's strength would scale alongside his level. What excited Bong even more was the fact that the item could also be used in the real world. If he ever sold it, it would likely fetch around 3 billion won. But at this point, Bong's mindset had already changed. With Kosak by his side, what did he have to fear? Clearing the tower now felt like a simple walk. However, Kosak's next words made Bong pause. He admitted that he could no longer guarantee setting bracelets moving forward. The enemies ahead would only become stronger, and he warned his master to be careful and absolutely not die. Bong briefly reconsidered selling the bracelet again. Maybe it would be better to cash out and abandon the hunter path entirely. Time passed, and at the Hunter Association Center, they had already received the highest rating notifications 15 days earlier. However, what frustrated them was the fact that the hunter in question had shown no intention of continuing his climb. The director was visibly irritated. Fate had somehow delivered a rare genius to a hunter so timid he trembled. Guangyil hesitated slightly, pointing out that from the 16th floor onward, the difficulty spiked sharply, but that person likely wouldn't stop there. He suggested waiting a bit longer. Just then, he received a call from Bong. Bong stated that he wanted to use the hunter shop. The moment the director heard this, he visibly flinched, and a theory immediately formed in his mind. He assumed Bong had not progressed to the 16th floor because he lacked funds to buy equipment, so he had been repeatedly farming the 15th floor to gather resources. After all, when Guangyil had first visited his home, it had been extremely poor. The director mentally cursed himself for doubting him. They had almost mislabeled a genius as cowardly and immediately resolved to ensure he could purchase anything he needed at the lowest possible price. Time rewinds 15 days earlier. Bong lifted his shirt and told Kosak to stab him in the stomach with a dagger as a test. Kosak looked completely speechless. This clearly violated the 3 principles, and he felt Bong was deliberately making things difficult for him. If you're going to treat me like this, you might as well just kill me, he thought. But Bong simply wanted to test whether the barrier worked properly. He had no intention of dying. Even so, Kosak remained conflicted and unable to harm him. At the moment Kosak hesitated, Bong grabbed his hand and forced the blade into his own stomach. The moment he saw blood, Bong quickly drank a healing potion. He had forgotten to activate the barrier and had stabbed himself for nothing. Completely reckless. Kosak looked like he was about to cry and told him never to do something so dangerous again. Then his figure vanished as he headed to clear the 15th floor. During this time, no matter the situation, Kosak could clear monsters within 5 minutes. While Kosak was out hunting, Bong used the gaps in time to practice his own skill repeatedly. He muttered softly, "Shadow step." In the next instant, after images appeared around him, and his body flickered more than 10 meters away. A rush of excitement surged through him. It felt almost like teleportation. He trained relentlessly in the forest until he had fully mastered the skill. Only then did he understand why Kosak insisted he learn it. At that moment, he used Shadow Step again and suddenly appeared right in front of a goblin. The goblin stared at him nervously, and the two locked eyes in awkward silence. It almost felt like the goblin had been hiding from Kosak's pursuit. Bong's legs nearly gave out. He had just learned the skill and was no match for a goblin at all. The goblin suddenly went berserk and lunged to bite him. At the brink of danger, Bong activated the bracer and kicked it away, even shattering its teeth. The scene was witnessed by Kosak in the distance, who immediately rushed in and cut the goblin down with a reverse slash. He casually remarked, "If he used to play soccer," but then he realized something was wrong. Bong had clearly been in danger. Without hesitation, Kosak abandoned the remaining monsters and rushed back to him. He checked Bong anxiously from head to toe and scolded him for being reckless. After half a month of repeating the 15th floor farming routine, Bong became significantly more skilled at using his abilities. Time shifted again to the present, when Bong arrived at the hunter shop to buy supplies as agreed. Guangyil greeted him warmly, acting almost overly respectful as if Bong were a VIP. Inside the shop, Bong registered an account using his fingerprint, allowing him future access without appointments. The interior was extremely high-end, yet strangely empty of customers. Bong wondered if the prices were simply too high for anyone to afford. His priority was selling all his magic crystals. After appraisal, they were valued at over 11 million won. He could also purchase weapons directly if needed. However, Bong's social anxiety began to flare up again. He just wanted to leave as quickly as possible whenever strangers were around. Meanwhile, the director had been monitoring everything remotely. He asked if the shopping was going smoothly, and the staff confirmed that it was. Other hunters had been informed that the store was closed for the day, and pricing had been adjusted accordingly. Everything had been set to a discount. The director reasoned that because Bong was shy, giving items for free might make him uncomfortable and even cause resistance. After finishing his purchases, Bong returned home. This time he had bought a staff-like weapon and a pair of boots, spending a total of 5 million won. Yet he had heard most items started at around 4 million. He couldn't understand how he had gotten such a discount. With the team leader personally handling him, everything felt like special treatment. But that only made him uneasy. In his experience, nothing in life came without strings attached. Still, the boots were extremely useful, covering much of his defense thanks to the integrated energy barrier system. Bong had once told himself not to get greedy, but his growing talent and rewards were slowly changing him. No one could resist climbing higher forever. The next day, Bong summoned Kosak again and stated their objective clearly: clear the 16th floor as quickly as possible. The cooldown for random summon had also finally ended. Kosak looked visibly excited, curious about what kind of human would be summoned next. Then Bong activated the random summon. The scene unfolding before him was nearly identical to the moment Kosak had first appeared. A human silhouette slowly took shape, gradually solidifying into form. However, it didn't take long before Bong sensed that something was off. The man's body began to swell rapidly, growing larger by the second. His head slammed straight through the ceiling, leaving a gaping hole above. Bong stood frozen in place, unable to comprehend what he was seeing. What kind of monster had he just summoned? A moment later, the man forcefully pulled his head back down from the ceiling, but before he could fully recover, Kosak leaped into the air and delivered a kick, said that he sit down. The blow landed directly on the giant's head. Once the massive man finally sat properly, Kosak continued striking him, slapping him repeatedly while grinding his teeth in anger and cursing. Why does it have to be him? Bong immediately became certain. The two of them clearly knew each other from before. Under Kozak's relentless beating, the giant calmly spoke with a straight face, saying that it tickles. That single sentence instantly ignited Kozak's killing intent. The next moment, Kosak was about to rush forward, but Bong quickly stepped in and stopped the both of them. Hearing the command, Kosak immediately froze. What pained Bong even more was the realization that he would have to pay for the hole in the ceiling. Suppressing his rage, Kosak began to explain. This man was infamous in their circles, known as a complete idiot, so much so that even Kosak claimed he could no longer remember the three principles. At that moment, the giant suddenly began reciting them himself. The first principle was to obey the summoner. The second was to understand the summoner's value. But when he reached the third, he froze completely. Kosak trembled in fury, saying that he can't even get the second principle right. Bong then checked the status window in front of him. Fish Shield, Savage Meat Tank of the Great Plains Tribe. Rare rank, lowest manifestation time, 10 hours. Seeing the lowest tier rare rating, Bong felt slightly disappointed. It seemed he would have to wait another month before gambling on the next summon. After that, Bong carefully examined all the information like an interviewer. Name, background, he knew nothing. Suddenly, a strange electric numbness surged through Bong's mind, and his consciousness dropped sharply. It felt exactly like when he had read Kozak's memories, as if a replay of another life had begun. The next moment, he found himself in an unfamiliar place with no idea where he was. Standing ahead was that same foolish giant. He came from the Great Plains tribe, a wild warrior whose soul was so pure that he could find happiness just by existing in nature. Yet he possessed terrifying talent. His physical abilities were absurdly high. Even when a wild wolf pounced at him, he wasn't afraid. Instead, he thought it wanted to play. However, his kindness and slowness became openings others exploited. When people discovered how naive he was, they were overjoyed. Eventually, this wild warrior was deceived by so-called heroes. During a battle against the super monster Hydra, he was used as a disposable meat shield. Yet his hardened body endured the Hydra's breath head-on, and he even ripped off one head after another in return. He never realized his skin was being melted away by acid, surviving only with the belief of protecting his companions. In the end, he died from the overwhelming acid accumulated inside his body. Before dying, he was mocked by those so-called comrades gathered around him. "You're really stupid. Thanks to you, we won so easily." Seeing this scene, Bong felt as if his heart was being tightly gripped. Someone so strong, so pure, had died such a miserable death. When the memory ended, Bong returned to reality. But this time, tears were already falling from his eyes. So what if this person was a little slow? Bong raised his hand and welcomed him to join. From that moment on, they would climb the Black Tower together. While shaking his hand, Bong gave him a choice of name, Meatball or Barber. In the end, the giant chose Meatball. Bong promised Meatball that he would let him live happily. Then he turned toward Kosak, saying that the three of them should work hard together. Kosak looked displeased at first, but then suddenly realized something and spoke excitedly. He said he would train him into a real man, even if he was as slow as a turtle. Thus, a strange trio was born. One dull-witted tank, one crazy assassin, and one cowardly summoner. In theory, it was a disastrous combination, but perhaps it could produce unexpected results. Soon they arrived at the 16th floor. Their mission was to eliminate 16 scout goblins within 5 hours. The moment they stepped onto the floor, Kosak repeatedly warned Bong that if danger appeared, he should immediately use Shadow Step to retreat. They moved into a forest where goblins lay hidden in ambush within the shadows. While Bong noticed nothing, a goblin perched in a tree had already locked onto him. It puffed its cheeks and blew sharply, firing a hidden dart from its tube like a bullet. At the critical moment, Kosak raised his hand and caught the projectile directly. Bong felt a chill run down his spine. Instantly, the ambush was revealed, and multiple goblins rushed in at once. Bong quickly retreated behind a rock. Kosak's hands moved so fast they left after images as he blocked the rain of arrows, warning Bong not to show himself or he might die. The arrow storm was extremely dense, and Bong's heart tightened. This wasn't a small skirmish. There were likely more than 50 goblins in ambush. At that moment, Meatball beside him moved, his eyes turned fierce like a beast. They tried to kill Gong. In return, Meatball will make them pay. His massive foot slammed into the ground, and in the next instant, he launched himself forward like a spring. The goblins were stunned. They had never seen such an enormous body move like that. On the other side, Kosak continued cutting down goblins at high speed, but suddenly noticed them beginning to flee. Confused, he turned his head and realized something was wrong. A massive shadow loomed overhead before a thunderous impact followed. Meatball crashed into the ground, sending a shockwave that hurled all nearby goblins into the air. Even Kosak was swept upward by the force. Bong, hiding at the rear, was completely stunned. This looked less like a battle and more like a natural disaster. The goblins, now panicking and sweating, desperately swarmed Meatball. Meatball repeated his usual line that it didn't hurt, then charged forward and with a single punch sent an entire group of goblins flying. More accurately, he surged ahead with his fist extended, crushing any goblin that touched his body instantly. Bong watched, his blood pumping wildly. This level of power was at least rare. No, maybe even special super rare in raw strength. Perhaps he was only rated rare because of intelligence. After clearing the floor with ease, Bong returned home and ordered over a dozen sets of fried chicken legs for Meatball. He was extremely satisfied with Meatball's performance that day. As long as he kept doing well, he would get chicken legs every day. Sitting across from Bong, Kosak knocked Meatball on the head while complaining that the chicken was too spicy. Bong opened his mouth and mocked him, saying an assassin was still just an assassin, afraid even of spicy food and looking like an idiot. Just as Bong sighed, thinking these two clearly had no chance of living peacefully together, Meatball suddenly spoke, saying that Kosak was a good person. Bong froze for a moment, and warmth filled his chest. He said that he is the one that is relying on him. Meatball had just opened his mouth to respond when Kosak kicked him in the face. Bong gritted his teeth and cursed, asking why Kosak kept bullying him. Kosak looked helpless, saying that Meatball had eaten all his chicken legs while he wasn't paying attention. The next day, the three of them came to the 17th floor. Bong carefully felt the changes within his body. Reaching the 17th floor meant he had also risen to level 17. Power surged inside him as if it were about to go out of control. His heart pounded as if reignited. That wild horse was still neighing violently in his chest. Perhaps it was time for him to truly take the field. But the two powerhouses directly ignored his rising blood. Kosak even kindly reminded him that from around level 20, a lot of people become arrogant and that he must be even more careful after this. Meatball thumped his chest and said he would protect Bong. Bong could only stay sandwiched behind the two of them, not even daring to show his head. He felt it was better to stay steady, and there was no need to risk his life just to prove anything. The mission for this floor was to defeat 30 goblin warriors. When Bong used to watch strategy videos about these goblin warriors, he had not felt much. But the moment he saw them in person, the pressure was almost suffocating. That goblin unit had at least 90 members, and the tactical coordination of these ordinary monsters was unexpectedly proficient. The standard strategy Bong had looked up before entering was this: when a goblin warrior unit appeared, first retreat to the safe zone, then return after a while. The enemy forces would disperse into groups of 3 on patrol. To avoid drawing too much aggro, lure out 3 groups at a time and kill them one by one, repeating the cycle until the mission is complete. The strategy was very steady but extremely time-consuming. But for Bong, none of these steps were necessary at all, because standing beside him were 2 monstrous teammates. Bong gave Meatball an order to wipe out the goblins in front as fast as possible. The instant Meatball received the command, he threw back his head and roared, energy spreading like a wave and even cracking the ground. Bong even felt that with Meatball by his side, reaching the 40th floor might not be a problem. Bong raised his hand and pointed, ordering Meatball to wipe out all those guys.